Hello, everyone. Welcome to Options with Doug, streaming live on Monday and Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Bookmap Discord and the Bookmap YouTube channel. Before I get started, I need to go through the disclosures. General disclosure: all Bookmap Limited materials, information, presentations are for educational purposes only and should not be considered specific investment advice nor recommendations. Risk disclosure: trading futures, equities, and options involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Here's my contact information. You can get in touch with me on Discord. My name on Discord is Doug P. Also in Bookmap Discord, there's an Options-Doug chat channel. You can post questions, comments, and content related to the topics of my presentation and the topics of the channel that I'll go through in just a moment. I'm also on X. My name there is @Pless. Have one quick announcement. Bookmap is encouraging everyone to join Bookmap Discord. Once you join Bookmap Discord, you will need to verify your account. You can follow the link here or scan the QR code on your phone. Follow the link. You'll need to add the email address that you use to register at bookmap.com. And then you'll get a code. You enter the code, and then you should be verified, and you can fully participate in Bookmap Discord chat. Here are the key tenets to my approach to trading. I believe that options trades and market maker hedging activity are key drivers to price of many stocks and futures. That certainly applies to the large cap tech stocks, like the Magnificent Seven stocks, as well as the equity index futures, like the S&P 500, the NASDAQ 100. And for the S&P 500, SPX is the underlying index, SPY is the ETF version of that index, and the ES futures contract is a derivative of SPX. And when traders buy and sell puts and calls in SPX and SPY, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their delta exposure with ES futures. And for the NASDAQ 100, NDX is the underlying index. QQQ is the much more liquid ETF version of that index. And the NQ futures contract is a derivative of NDX. And just like the S&P 500, when traders buy and sell puts and calls in NDX and QQQ, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their delta exposure with NQ futures. The focus of my presentation today and the focus of the Options-Doug chat channel is options order flow, the impact of options markets on stocks and futures, and the influence of market maker hedging flow on price action. I have a two-step process for trading, and the first is planning. I use positional analysis. I look at how traders and market makers are positioned in the options market and how those positions change from day to day to develop a thesis regarding expected trading range and volatility for the day, as well as a directional bias. And the second step in my process is execution. I look at real-time order flow in Bookmap and real-time market maker hedging flow in Spotgamma Hero to confirm my thesis. And for setups, and when I talk about setups today, I will be focusing on an underlying asset. Setups in that asset can be taken with futures contracts, shares of stock, or options, depending on the asset as well as the way you like to trade. Questions and comments are welcome, and I will be watching both the Options-Doug chat channel as well as the chat and YouTube for your questions or comments. Please feel free to post. I'll do my best to answer your questions. Hello, Hector. Welcome. Glad to hear. Glad you're here. Glad to see you. Here's my agenda for today, Wednesday, May 14th. First of all, I want to go over news items, economic data, and events for the week. Then I'll go through my positional analysis. Then I'll review some setups from earlier today. Then I'll get to the live market as quickly as I can. And when I get to the live market, if anyone has any stocks they want me to take a look at, please let me know and I'll be glad to do that. All right, let's get started with news items. So it's been a big week so far for news. First of all, over the weekend, the China-U.S. pause, cooling off period for 90-day cooling off period for tariffs with a significant reduction significant reduction in the current level of tariffs. And then yesterday, the CPI data came out lower than expected, better than expected, leading to a huge two-day rally, Monday and Tuesday, and a bit of consolidation today. All right, so news items coming up for the rest of the week. Tomorrow, PPI data comes out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Also, retail sales at the same time. Then on Friday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, housing starts, building permits, 10 a.m. Michigan consumer sentiment, and then Friday is also the monthly options expiration. Let's take a look at that. So this is the expiration concentration chart on the Spotgamma dashboard homepage. This is showing market makers delta notional by expiration for the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, and Russell 2000 combined. And this is the expiration coming up this Friday. Orange bars are showing call or positive delta notional. Blue bars are showing negative or put delta notional. So you can see this expiration on Friday is very call dominated. And that can sometimes lead to a little bit of correction, consolidation after expiration. All those calls that are helping to support the market, that positive gamma will expire on Friday. And again, that can lead to a little bit of consolidation. All right, so that is the upcoming options expiration, call dominated. And all right, so that's the news for the week. Let's move on now to positional analysis. And I'm going to start with the S&P 500. This is the ES Futures and Bookmap. And before I take a closer look at this chart, I do want to step back, take a look at a higher time frame. I'm going to go to the SPX, the underlying index. This is a 1 year, 1 day chart in SPX. This correction began just before the February expiration that's shown by that vertical red line. Then here's the gap down after the April 2nd Liberation Day tariff announcement, and SPX traded down almost to, actually overnight hours down to 4,800 and has rallied pretty sharply since then, up about 1,100 points since that move down to 4,800. All right, so on Monday, SPX gapped up above that 5,700 level that was acting as resistance. Let's take a look at that on a 30-day, 1 hour chart. So the 5,700 level right here was acting as resistance. And on Monday, and that was about the gap level. And on Monday, with the new over the weekend news, SPX gapped up sharply, rallied, and then started to find resistance at 5,900 yesterday. And then that continues today, some consolidation today after such a big move. All right, let's take a look at the levels on this chart. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. First of all, the expected moves. The weekly expected moves are shown by the dashed purple lines. These are based on the options market, based on the closing price for SPX. From last Friday, those levels remain in place for the entire week. Hello, iBomb Inc. Welcome. Glad you're here. All right, SPX, of course, gapped up above that level on Monday and is still trading above the upper weekly expected move. That's the dashed purple lines. Then the dashed blue lines are showing the lower and upper daily expected move. Those change every day. That's based on the options market, based on the closing price for SPX from yesterday. I do post those levels in Discord every day the evening before. All right, so far, SPX again trading above the upper weekday expected move, but within the daily expected range for today. All right, let's take a look at the spot gamma levels on this chart. These are shown with the dark red lines. They're based on gamma-weighted open interest. They're provided to Spotgamma subscribers, and they're available on a variety of trading platforms. This is Thinkorswim, again, a 30-day, 1-hour chart. I'll start with the put wall at 5,200. That's a strike with largest net negative gamma that can be expected to act as support. That was the put wall on Monday. It dropped down to 5,000 yesterday and is now back at 5,200. All right, the next level up is the volatility trigger VT there at 58.45. That is Spotgamma's proprietary gamma and volatility flip level. Below that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is negative. In a negative gamma environment, market makers have to trade with price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to enhance or increase volatility. Above that level, like SPX is traded now, market makers' position on the gamma curve is positive. In a positive gamma environment, market makers have to trade against price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to subdue or decrease volatility. And note that is based on Spotgamma's older, more primitive model for market maker gamma position. But SPX is trading above the volatility trigger. Then the next level up is 6,000. And that is the call wall, which is the strike with largest net positive gamma that can be expected to act as resistance. And that would be a longer term resistance level, a potential target if price continues to move up. That's also the absolute gamma strike. That's a strike with the largest absolute positive and negative gamma. All right, put wall down at 5,200, call wall absolute gamma strike at 6,000, and then in between the 58.45 volatility trigger. All right, let's wrap up our view of SPX with a 1-minute chart so we can get a better picture of the levels in play for today. So this is showing, let me zoom out just a little bit. The gap up, big gap up on Monday. And then consolidation began yesterday afternoon as SPX traded up toward 5,900. That's right here, 5,900. That was noted as a resistance level in the Spotgamma AM Founders Note today, and that is definitely doing it. The 5,900 level is definitely doing its job as resistance. Setting up a nice entry point for an afternoon short and also a morning short. All right, let's go to Bookmap now. So in Bookmap, I'm showing these SPX levels. There's that 5,900 level. And there's a SPY combo level just below that. 5,900 acting as resistance. Then earlier today, the SPY 589, that's just a round number level, acting as resistance. You can see the liquidity stacked up at that level. Those are limit sell orders, ES limit sell orders. So I have SPY levels, SPX levels on this chart, as well as key ES levels. There's the SPY volatility trigger. Now it looks like that level may be acting as resistance. And note there is a difference in price between ES and SPX. And today it is somewhere between 18 and 19 points. I'm using 19. So I'm showing SPX 59.19 at ES. SPX 5,900 at ES 5919. All right, so those are the levels in play. Resistance levels, again, the SPY 589 and then the SPX 5900, which was noted as a resistance in the Spotgamma Amp Founders note, and now maybe the SPY 587 volatility trigger. All right, let's move on. Let's take a look at NASDAQ now. NASDAQ, there are no QQQ levels in play for today. There are some NDX levels, so let's take a look at those before we get back to Bookmap. Here's NDX. Levels in play. 21,300. That's a large Gamma 4 level. Here's the put wall at 21,270. Looks like that level may be acting as resistance. And then below that, a couple of combo levels at 21,244 and 21,181. So right now, currently, the 21,270 level potentially acting as resistance. All right, back to Bookmap. So there's that 21,300 level. And then the 270 put wall. Combo level below that. And the 270 put wall looks like that just lines up with the NQ 21,350 level. And again, I do post the index relationships that I use every day in Discord in the Options-Jug chat channel. All right, so NASDAQ consolidating also. All right, let's wrap up our positional analysis by taking a look at Gamma. Then we'll get to some setups in the live market. I'm going to start with market maker's position on the Gamma curve at the beginning of the day. This is based on the older model. It's a good reference point. So this is market maker's position on the Gamma curve at the beginning of the day for the S&P 500, NASDAQ, and Russell 2000. You can see with the exception of IWM, these numbers are positive. And based on the old model again, which assumes that traders are short calls, market makers, traders are short calls, long puts. Market makers have the opposite side of that, so they're long calls, short puts. Hence the positive Gamma in this region of the Gamma curve. And again, in this older model assumption, positive Gamma, market makers have to trade against price to hedge their delta exposure. All right, so good reference point. All right, so now let's move on and take a look at the a current view of Gamma. I'm going to go to the Equity Hub, take a look at the new model. And let me check price. So SPX currently trading right around 58.84. Somewhere right around here. So there's what this is showing. Let me zoom in on this just a little bit. So what this is showing is a little bit of a pocket of negative Gamma below the zero level there. So a little bit of pocket of negative Gamma. And then the biggest negative Gamma is right around 6120. That's shown right here. All right, that is SPX. Let's take a look at SPY. And SPY, the max negative gamma is right around 591. And currently SPY trading right around 587. All right, let's take a look at real-time gamma now. This is the trace tool. It's available to Spotgamma subscribers. And this is showing market maker gamma notional in real time, actually a 10-minute delay. For SPX, bright red shading indicates negative gamma. So again, remember SPX in that pocket of negative gamma here. And there is some positive gamma up around 6,000 absolute gamma strike call wall. Note also the low stability index at 1%. So this is indicating the potential for a lot of movement in this negative gamma environment. Looking over here on the GEX bars, there is some positive gamma at 59.05 and down below at 58.60. All right, so based on this view of gamma, I was looking for higher volatility based on just price action for the last couple of days. I was looking for some consolidation. That would just make sense after such a big move the last couple of days. All right, so let's go on now. Let's take a look and see what's actually happening. I'm going to start with the S&P 500. And as always, I'm going to start by taking a look at what options traders have been doing today. This is the HIRO signal, HIRO, Hedging Impact Real-Time Options. So what this is showing is market maker hedging activity for the S&P 500 index components, SPX, SPY, XSP, and ES futures. The white line is price for SPX, and the purple line is the HIRO signal. A falling HIRO signal indicates traders are taking negative delta options positions. They are buying puts and or selling calls. Market makers take the opposite side of those trades, and they hedge their delta exposure by selling ES futures. And a rising HIRO signal indicates traders are taking positive delta options positions. They are buying calls and or selling puts. Again, market makers take the opposite side of those trades, and they hedge their delta exposure with ES futures. They buy ES futures to hedge. All right, so that is the index signal. Let's take a look at the other signal available for the S&P 500. This is the equity signal. This is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity, all 500 stocks in the S&P 500 index. Again, the purple line is the HIRO signal, and the white line is price for SPX. All right, so let's go back to the index signal first. And note this has pretty much been bearish for the day. Let's zoom in. And let's focus on this short setup that happened just after the open. That was right here, this peak pattern and the HIRO signal. So there was about a 5-minute bullish opening drive, and then the HIRO signal shifted from positive delta to negative delta, and price reversed lower. I'm going to shift to puts and calls. You can see the call peak pattern here. Very reliable bearish reversal signal. Let's take a look at the equity signal now. Zoom in on this. And you can see the same call peak pattern right at 9:35, 9:36. And this flow alert came in, signals significant options activity and a potential reversal in the hedging flow from positive delta to negative delta in this case. And that's exactly what happened, setting up that short right around 9:35. All right, so let's go to Bookmap and take a look at that. Then we'll get to some more current price action. Back to ES. I'm going to zoom in. Actually, let me zoom out. All right, so this is the cash open right here, 9:30. $9:30 cash open. Remember that 5-minute bullish opening drive. ES moves right up to this previous resistance level and reverses. The volume dots are showing market buy minus sell. Green volume dots indicate more buyers than sellers. Magenta dots indicate more sellers than buyers. Note also the heat map in Bookmap. Shows a history of limit orders in the order book. And you can see the limit sell orders at that level. Classic absorption at that level. Price reverses. Buyers are exhausted. Sellers come in as the hero flow on both the equities and index signal starts to shift lower, setting up a very nice short down to the 5,900 level. Cumulative volume delta shown by the magenta line starts to drop. Yellow line showing sell stop orders. Also helping to fuel that move lower. The light blue line is showing iceberg orders, and typical behavior for large traders with iceberg orders, they use to hide their size. They were buying weakness, and that is again pretty typical of large traders with iceberg orders, and that potentially helps some of this consolidation here. All right, then price broke lower again, right around 10.55. Let's go back and check the hero signal. I'm going to go back to the total signal so you can see that's hero signal breaks lower and then setting up a nice long right around 11.05. That's the equity signal. Index signal, also 11.05. Setting up a nice long there. All right, back to Bookmap. Again, sellers are exhausted. Buyers come in as the hero signal shifts from negative delta to positive delta. All right, let's get to the current price action right around 12:30. After a third test of the 5,900 level, the S&P 500 dropped sharply lower. Let's see what options traders are doing. I'm going to shift back to puts and calls. This is the index signal. So traders had already been buying puts, and they had pretty much, here's another call peak pattern, stopped buying calls, started selling calls, and then price dropped lower. And then they started buying calls. And as the put buying slowed down, price started to reverse higher. Let's check that on the index signal, equity signal. Not really as clear. Go back to the total signal, a little bit more clear. Another peak pattern, price reverses lower. Hero signal reverses higher, and price moves higher. Back to Bookmap. So now we have that sharp drop lower. Reversal at this area of liquidity right at 58.90. Large traders continue to buy with iceberg orders. Then cumulative volume delta shifted up, as well as buy stop orders. So it looks like ES is broken up above that SPY 587 level. Now up to VWAP, this light blue line. All right, so that's the S&P 500. Currently, again, back above the SPY 587 volatility trigger. Let's take a look at NASDAQ. And let's see what options traders have been doing in NASDAQ. We'll start with the NASDAQ index signal. Choppy session, showing peaks and valleys as price turns. There's the initial morning short setup. The bounce higher. Very nice peak pattern right after 12:30, 12:35. Price drop lower. All right, so that is just like the S&P 500 index signal. This is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for NDX and QQQ, the NASDAQ index components. Let's check the Mag 7 signal, which shows options trades and market maker hedging activity for the stocks known as the Magnificent Seven. Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, Nvidia, Tesla. These stocks make up a very large component of the S&P 500, and they have definitely rallied sharply in the last couple of days after being beat up pretty soundly for the last few weeks. All right, so seeing peak patterns, peaks and valleys. There's the initial short, 935. Though the hero signal from that point to that low just before 10 a.m. has been moving higher, generally moving higher. Another nice peak for a short, counter trend short, then a valley again. All right, back to NASDAQ. And order flow so far for today has been fairly bearish. Cumulative volume delta down since the open. That's that dark blue line. Also iceberg orders down since the open. And stop orders as well. So there's that short right at 21,400 right after the open. Again, cumulative volume delta, icebergs, and stop orders all fueling that move lower. There's that next peak pattern. Up right around 21,415, 420, something like that. Back down to lows of the day. Some liquidity there at 280. Let me darken up the heat map. And that was right around just above the low of the day, previous low of the day. All right, so that's NASDAQ. Let's take a quick look at some stocks. And then we'll get to the live market. And I'm just going to cycle through some of mainly the Mag 7 stocks. Here's Amazon. Let's see what options traders have been doing in Amazon. I'm going to shift to puts and calls. Amazon, bearish opening drive. Traders are selling calls, that's shown by the orange line, buying puts, shown by the blue line. Market makers take the opposite side of those trades, and they have to hedge their delta exposure by selling stock. So for the first half hour or so, bearish opening drive, flow alert signals potential shift in hedging flow from negative delta to positive delta. That's exactly what happened. Traders stopped selling calls, started buying calls, started selling puts. Amazon reversed higher. And now is moving lower as traders have stopped buying calls, and now they are buying puts. So that's Amazon for the day, net bearish. Next stock, Google. Bullish day for Google. Let's see what options traders have been doing. And they've been buying calls. Flow alert comes in just after the cash open, signals significant options activity. And this kind of looks like algo activity. Very steady stream up and steady, consistent call buying. And traders continue to buy calls up until about 12:15, took the foot off the gas, and Google consolidated. So when traders buy calls, market makers sell the calls, they have to buy stock to hedge their delta exposure. So very nice bullish setup. And Google, with a nice flow alert that came in just after the open, signals significant options activity, get your attention, sets up a nice long, this pullback right here to the 160 key gamma strike. So let's go back at Bookmap, take a look at that. So there's that long at the 160 key gamma strike. Cumulative volume delta, very bullish. Steadily rising all day. You can see all the green volume dots. There are a lot of aggressive buyers. And remember, call buyers took their foot off the gas right around 12:30 as Google made a 7-point move higher. So pretty nice move in Google today. All right, next stock, Meta. Meta's been very strong the last couple of days. Some consolidation in Meta today. Let's see what options traders have been doing. Let's go to Meta. So there was a bearish opening drive. Traders selling calls and buying puts. And they started buying calls right around 10:30. And the drop down stopped. Now Meta just really continues to consolidate in a pretty wide range. But nice bearish opening drive. Traders taking profits, it looks like, after a big move. So there's the bearish opening drive. Multiple entry points. Down to 655. We can zoom in on that. Short entry points for the move down to the liquidity at 655. All right, that's Meta. Let's take a look at Microsoft. So we're getting a mixed picture for the Mag 7 stocks. Bullish setup for Microsoft here. Let's see what options traders are doing. And Microsoft has been strong since reporting earnings. Very bullish opening drive. Let's zoom in on this. Aggressive call buyers. That looks like a vertical line there. That would be a large block order, institutional order. That's kind of an institutional kickoff. Full alert comes in, and then the retail traders start to buy calls. Price moves higher. Another institutional block order there. That's pretty typical of Microsoft to see a lot of vertical lines in the hero signal. All right, so about the first hour, very bullish pattern for Microsoft. Bullish opening drive, bullish institutional kickoff. They take their foot off the gas, call exhaustion right around 10:40. And price now starting to grind a little bit lower. The fuel that had moved Microsoft higher in the morning for the first hour was gone. All right, back to Microsoft. So there's the bullish opening drive, high of the day, just below the 454 high liquidity. Limit sell orders in the order book. All right, next stock, NVIDIA. And for NVIDIA, 135 is the call wall. And there was a bearish setup this morning as price reversed just below the 135 call wall. And let's see what happened after that. Let's take a look at Hero for NVIDIA. Zoom in. So there's that call peak that appeared in the index signals right at 9:35. As NVIDIA approached the call wall, traders started selling calls. Price reversed lower, setting up a bearish opening drive after a brief move higher. Then the call buyers came in right around 10:20, 10:30. And price moved back up to the 135 call wall, a little bit above. Looks like now has found resistance at that level as the call buyers have taken the foot off the gas. Those orders, limit sell orders at the 135 call wall level, were consumed. And now price consolidating as the call buyers again took their foot off the gas. Let's wrap up our view of Mag 7 stocks with Tesla. And Tesla continues to move higher. Let's see what options traders have been doing. And a choppy morning session, a couple of peak reversal patterns, but overall for the day, bullish for Tesla. Call peak with the index is 935. And again at 1010. Then call buyers started to come in right after, let's say 11:10 a.m., something like that. Pretty large flurry of call buying, multiple peak patterns. Now they have resumed buying calls again. So we'll watch for another peak pattern there. All right, so back to Tesla, back to Bookmap. Tesla again approaching highs of the day at the 350 high liquidity level. Limit sell orders. One last stock, then we'll get to the indexes. Palantir, another strong stock recently. More consolidation today. There was a very brief bullish opening drive. Trying to get Bookmap to show the all the price action. Very brief bullish opening drive. Then a grind lower, multiple entry prices for short entry points for short. Let's see what options traders are doing. Back to Hero, back to Palantir. Pretty choppy price action. There's that peak pattern again. Bullish opening drive lasted about 5 minutes. Peak pattern. Traders stop buying calls, start selling calls. And now pretty much consolidated. Looks like some call buyers just came in right around 120. Looks like several large orders, and then the retail traders starting to buy calls again. All right, questions, comments? Anyone have any stocks they want me to take a look at? Not, let's get back to the indexes. I'm going to start with the S&P 500. Still a pretty choppy signal today. Overall net bearish. Delta notional in the index signal right around minus 2.32 billion. Let's check the equity signal. Now it's flattened out a little bit. Let's check the NASDAQ index signal. Mag 7 signal. Still sloping slightly upward. Let's go to Bookmap. We'll go back to the index signal here. Back to Bookmap. Zoom in. All right, so it looks like the SPY 587 volatility trigger level acting as support now. And VWAP resistance as ES trades in a very narrow range. Now ES breaking up above the breaking above VWAP. And let's go back and check Hero. Zoom in. So it looks like at this point Hero is just kind of following price, pretty close correlation. I'm going to open up another chart so I don't have to keep zooming in. So I'm going to open up the equity signal. So I can zoom in a little bit. So that is moving up. So that's set up, looking at a very short time frame, setting up a divergence there. Hero signal started moving up, and then the SPX followed. looking at it in a pretty zoomed level. All right, back to Bookmap. Let's take a look at Trace and see if the charm pressure heat map gives us any indication of an end of day target. Let's go to charm pressure. So right now there are a lot of potential end of day price targets. What we're looking for is an area with blue buying support below and selling pressure above. So there's the first potential, second potential. So either above or below. And that's at right around 59.10 or 58.70. All right, back to Gamma. So 59.10 or 58.70. Yes, trading in a narrow range. Let's check NASDAQ. Looks like some limit sell orders up above at 380, 390, and 400. And let's go check Hero. I'm going to open up one more tab here. Check the NASDAQ index signal. Let's shift over to the Mag 7 signal. So it looks like that now has turned down a little bit. So is this just a pullback or a reversal? For a reversal, I would be inclined to look more for a peak pattern. Let's go back to Bookmap. So NASDAQ also trading at a very narrow range between 350 and 380. Which is the 21,300 large gamma 4 NDX level. All right, questions, comments? Does anyone have any stocks they want me to take a look at? Let's go back and check Tesla, see if it's made it up to that 350 level. No, it looks like maybe reversing at 349. We can check Hero for Tesla. No, they're flow alert. Not a sharp peak, but Hero signal is turning down. That's for Tesla. Back to Mag 7. Also still moving down. Back to Bookmap. There's Tesla. Aggressive sellers started to come in. Cumulative volume delta continues to move lower. Back to NASDAQ, still in that range. Back to ES. Hello, KP. Welcome. Glad you're here. KP asks, can you show how you get your expected moves for SPX? Sure. Not a lot going on here with the indexes, so we can take a look at that. So I have SPX. Let's go to the trade tab, take a look at and that's not the stock. All right, so what I will do after the close today, I will take a look at this number right here. So I'll look at it after the close. So SPX closes at 4 p.m. The price closes at 4 p.m. Options close at 4:15. So after 4:15, I will look at this number right here. So right now it's showing plus or minus 46.96 points. So I will take that number and add it and subtract it from the closing price. And that, I will do that this afternoon. Then for the futures, I do that as well. I don't post those, but I do that for the futures independently. Futures close at 5, open up at 6. So I'll take a look at ES and NQ after 5 p.m. and get those numbers as well and add it and subtract them from the closing price. And then I do post the expected moves for SPX every day in the afternoon, evening before. All right, so now ES found resistance at at VWAP. You're welcome, KP. Let's check NASDAQ, see if it's breaking lower also. There's still support at 350, which is the 270 put wall. Now breaking lower, it looks like maybe. Let's go check Hero. That's the Mag 7 signal, moving lower. Equity signal also moving lower. S&P 500 index signal also moving lower. And just to note, when I'm trading during the day, I have 3 screens that I'm watching when I'm trading. I'm watching Hero on one screen. On my left screen, I'm watching Bookmap on my main screen, and then also the trading platform on my right screen. So trading platform on the right, Bookmap in the middle, Hero on the left, and making trading decisions based on what I see on all 3 screens. Right, back to Bookmap, back to ES. So nice break lower at VWAP there. And one other thing that I look at, let's turn this on. This is the market pulse price change indicator. And I like to look for extremes. So a good if I'm going to sell, I'm looking for these bright green extremes, and buys at the bright red extremes. Right now, ES is trading in somewhat of a range. But it is doing a very good job of highlighting scalps, short setups at the bright green extremes, long scalps at the bright red extremes. All right, last call for questions. All right, everyone, my time is up. I want to thank you very much for watching. Thanks for your questions and comments. Remember, data comes out tomorrow and Friday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Friday is also options expiration, call-dominated options expiration. And then we'll talk about that on Monday. Hope to see you then. Have a great day, great week, and I will see you again on Monday. Thanks again. Bye.